Hello and welcome to the Open Book channel. My name is Lady Valheim, your designated open book. This video is an expansion on my last video and its relevance to other small creators. If you haven't seen that video, I'll link it in the card above this one. I highly recommend watching it first as there's a lot of context that you'll need for this video to entirely make sense, but TLDR, I was laid off from my seasonal labor day job and denied financial benefits from my government that I would have otherwise been entitled to on the premise that I invested too much into my writing and took myself too professionally not to be classified as a full-time self-employed business owner. Not to oversimplify, because there's a lot of small things that I did that I can't deny strengthened the opinion they formed of my intentions to be a legitimate publishing house or what have you, but I reserve the right to criticize their contextless means of coming to that conclusion, which you should also be aware of as a small creator because those determining factors were having a legitimate looking online presence that I could potentially, and I say potentially, make a bit of cash from, securing a business name that I might someday wish to use because all creators, no matter how small, have been taught to cultivate a brand as early as possible, spending more than 15 hours a week on writing related things, which I did even when I was in my full-time real job, but that's the cutoff that they choose, that 15 hours they believe would inhibit one's pursuit of alternative work, admitting that I would prefer being a writer to, my previous labor job, having my words twisted into saying that writing would be my primary income source, which was only on the condition that I was laid off and didn't have another one, and just generally showing too much willingness to someday turn my writing into a legitimate job. All these aspects that do not differentiate me from literally any other small self-published writer determined me by my government as self-employed. But I would argue again that the determination of someone's intentions should be mostly their own, which is what we're here to talk about today. When does a hobby become a career? To preface the exploration of this topic, my stance is that the only factor which should allow your status as a hobbyist or professional to be determined by a governing body is inhibiting time expense and profitability. I agree with their time investment regulation, but I feel as though it should be contextual to what you're doing. Spending 15 hours a week on a creative pursuit like writing or art is not inhibiting someone from getting or maintaining a full-time job. We literally all do that. It's kind of the norm. And even then, it in no way makes that time investment profitable. If you are making enough money to earn a living wage, then yes, you should be considered self-employed. But if I spend 50 hours a week writing and editing a novel that I'm going to put on Wattpad in the meantime just because I am not currently otherwise employed, that should not disqualify me from financial benefits that I've earned as a labor worker, if I was laid off through no fault of my own and otherwise willing and looking for work. Not that I am putting anything on Wattpad, I'm just saying that trivial pursuit wouldn't have mattered in the grand scheme of my government's determination of my intentions to make a living off of that, because they just don't know. And I'm making this video to highlight that my situation is not so specific as it seems. Like, yes, I am kind of in the worst case scenario, having the benefits that I earned and was depended on ripped away from me because I treated my passion as a self-published writer too legitimately, but this can apply to you too, regardless of your working situation. Like I just outlined, your status of self-employment is determined by a force outside of yourself that focuses on time, as opposed to anything relevant to the unlikely sustainability of a creative field. But on that note, it feels like a tide is shifting. Careers that, when I grew up in the 90s, were considered not real jobs, and your parents were supremely disappointed in you if you went to school to be a writer or an artist, well, that stigma has changed. I'm not sure which reason that is. Whether the profitability of being a content creator has been skewed in the eyes of the masses because creatives have been elevated to a seemingly more accessible celebrity status, or more likely, the recognition of how wealthy a creator can be is just an easy excuse to ignore our industry's vulnerability. Probably a bit of both. And again, I would like to reiterate that I don't feel entitled to free money from my government, but I do feel as though the perception of what constitutes a profession rather than a hobby has been taken out of context of the sphere it actually resides, and held up to generalized standards that just do not apply. And it's led to this circumstance where small creators can not just be penalized, but genuinely disadvantaged if they appear successful in any capacity. Like my case, where if my hobby was cross-country skiing 15 hours a week instead of writing, my government wouldn't have questioned my legitimacy to employment insurance or denied me it. So the question is, has the perception of our creative hobbies as profitable become dangerous? And I think it has. Not because we are all destined to become starving artists and never support ourselves, but because that generalized perception holds all levels of professionalism and hobbyism in a field to the same standards. To say your hobby could be profitable, therefore it's your responsibility to make it so, is entirely blind to the degrees of what being a creative is like, or what being a creative can be. Yeah, some people can make $1 million a painting, but that doesn't mean that someone else who spends equally as much time on a piece will inherently be valued the same. This isn't even a matter of demanding the implementation of a living wage, because there wouldn't be a problem with spending a part-time job's worth of time on your writing if that didn't suddenly hold you accountable to magically manifesting the same amount of profit from having a regular part-time job. We don't expect a grocery store worker to be able to maintain the same lifestyle as an architect, and being a self-published writer comes in those vastly different degrees of wealth and status, but the system of determination between hobbyist and professional is treating the high and the low end of the spectrums to the same expectations and ability to thrive. I don't know how, other than that really poor analogy, to say how unreasonable and contextless this whole situation is, and how dangerous it can be to small creators that get caught up in it. Because there's no disputing the assumptions that other people have of what you're capable of as a creator. I know I sound like a pessimist when I say I can't support myself as a writer, but I was quite literally told by the agent overseeing my application that I was towing the line of fraud by saying it. They don't understand that I'm not saying it because I want free money. I'm saying it because it's true. I can't support myself as a writer. Not like I could if I still had a job, and not like I would be if I was even making a percentage of the pay that EI would provide. I never intended for my livelihood to depend on my writing. They're the ones that decided that's what was going to happen, and thrust that impossible reality onto me. I have done nothing but sink my savings into this business that I wasn't ready to start, and I'll make a video in a bit about what the actual startup costs were, but my break even isn't just far away, it's going to keep getting farther away for the near future. This position is a hole someone else dug for me. I haven't made a penny from my books over the last several years, but now I'm resting my life's finances and hoping that bleak statistic changes. Again, magically. How many months does it take until they'll acknowledge that I'm a failure and not able to support myself? Or will the idea of a small creator's potential forever condemn me from investing too much of myself into something that's not a standard 9 to 5 because it will end up financially ostracizing me? I'm not making money, and even if I do, it's not going to be enough to feed me. Absolutely not enough to pay rent. Thank God I am not paying rent right now, or this decision that has been made and bestowed upon me would have been an immediate sentence to financial destitution. The really messed up thing is, especially considering you don't have to declare the money that you make on freelancing or odd jobs generally on your taxes until it surpasses $10,000. That's the standard that they've set to define legitimacy, but I, probably a grand deep in debt now and no current prospects to make it back, are again being held up to that level of a real publishing house or genuine freelancer. But this isn't just secluded to Canada either. I have a writing associate in the US that runs a publication on Medium. And for context, a Medium publication can be made by anyone, it is free, and there is technically no professional restrictions on running one. But come tax time, he was questioned in the same regard. His tax agent questioned his intentions and how long he could keep claiming writing as a quote-unquote hobby. At least in his case, he's made a small amount of money with his writing. Not enough money over the course of his writing career to cumulatively pay for all his expenses and even a single month of rent, utilities, or insurance, but at least he's made something, whereas I have not. So I feel like we've hit a dark spot in the timeline where small creators are being sabotaged by the over-expectations of our societies. It would be nice to be held in high regard, but the reality is that doing so, holding small creators up to the level of ones actually able to make a living, makes it hard for them to genuinely get there. Because if you look at us, our potential, in equal regard, small creators are caught playing catch up to something that we haven't achieved yet, to something that we may never achieve. And the expectation that we can achieve it is skewed. And ultimately, unfortunately, without having formed the building blocks that we need to be up there in the first place, it's just a more devastating fall. Like my situation, for example. I wasn't ready to start a publishing-related business. I didn't have my ducks in a row, so not only am I going to perpetually set myself back, wasting time just trying to get started, and wasting money setting up something that can be profitable, if I wasn't rushed into it, I'd be freer freer and more capable of doing either of those things without the term waste in front of it. When you're starting up and you haven't made any money, it feels like an act of futility, funneling more and more of your resources into something that hasn't given you anything back. And that feeling itself is inhibiting. I'm going to be more frugal than reasonable, so I'm going to have a harder time making appropriate decisions, spending into what I should be spending into to have a successful business because I am so hesitant and unsure it'll ever be worth it, and I'm not just burning money or that I should just actually give up. Being put in the position of starting a business when I was miles back from starting has been detrimental to my ability to make it to the start line, to get the chance to actually try, and that's all because someone else was given the authority to determine my passion as my profession. And I don't know what the solution to this is, honestly, because unless you're the one making something, you can never truly understand the profitability of it. Being a creator isn't as objective as it should be. Everyone on the outside of you has vastly different opinions of what you are, what you do, and what you're worth, and it's very hard to change that. When I was going over my benefits application with the agent that would determine me ineligible, he was actually very kind and excited when he was asking me about what I would someday want to do with my business under the Acidic Ink name, and I said probably ebook covers. And the agent went on about some show that he watched like Pawn Stars where people would bring in first edition books with alt covers and make a bunch of money. And he was super into it and said maybe I could do that. He said that's a good profitable thing to do and I should consider it. But that's the thing. That's not what I was going to do at all, even remotely. But explaining to him the rarity of what a first edition of a book is, or why it's so valuable, or that what he's describing is a physically crafted product and not an ebook cover, which is a low-value digital download, was much too hard. Explaining the nuances of why one aspect of a creative niche is worth so much and another is not, isn't going to land for someone who has no scope of the field. But that won't stop them from having an opinion or expectations of what I'm capable of, or the value of what I'm actually doing. Which is the kicker, isn't it? I'm sure this video will be a little long by the time that I'm done, so thank you for watching. I don't want to scare any of you. I just made this video so other small creators can be aware that sometimes your intentions don't matter as much as the perception other people form of you, and how detrimental that can be. Because unless you're a small creator, there's no way of knowing what that really means. When your hobby becomes a profession isn't up to you. It's up to however someone else perceives your success at it, I suppose. So just be aware and be wary of that. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support me and this channel, you can find a link to my Ko-fi in the description below. Patrons get extra content and discounts, so please go check it out. If you're interested in any of my writing, you can find my books on Amazon under Slady Valheim. I also provide a variety of self-publishing services from beta reading to book covers, which you can find a gallery of at acidicink.ca. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!